Hey there, internets. So, my name is Pat. I am coming to you from my grandfather's desk, and we're going to talk a little bit about something. And I'm going to start off with a little reading from a Bible verse I think is going to be relevant before this is done. So it's Matthew chapter 7, verse 3. And why beholdest thou, which is a King James version, by the way, just so you know. And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considereth not the beam that is in thine own eye? Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, let me pull out the mote out of thine eye, and behold the beam that is in thy own eye? Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thine own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote in thy brother's eye. Mote and beam is like a speck and a log, respectively. So why I happen to grab the King James first tonight. So why are you worrying about the speck in your own eye and ignoring the beam in your own? And why would this be relevant? Well, here's why it's relevant. Because there's going to be some people who are probably upset over something Biden did, and we'll talk about that. Am I really certain that Biden is doing it for the right reasons? Not entirely. But there's some things to consider, and it's going to go beyond just this one issue. Because we as conservatives, if we're going to advocate something, we need to be the thing that we're advocating for. And that's why I'm starting off with that. In the article, which will be the first thing linked to after I get it off my phone and can get back to my laptop, read immediately when I upload from my phone, I will actually have a copy of a link to a site with all of the secession documents for the Confederacy, and that's important here too, what I'm going to have to talk about. But this article, and I found it's originally from the Daily Caller, says the Department of Defense officials on February 10 issued a memorandum to service members telling them that large displays of the American flag at sporting events are no longer appropriate, and that's where people are going to get upset. The military is currently struggling with low recruitment numbers across all services, a drought not seen since 1973 when the United States left Vietnam and the draft effectively ended. Lieutenant General Thomas Spohr, I think that's the right way that's pronounced, of the Heritage Foundation, told NBC News, I assume he is retired, though the guidance is in alignment with Title IV of the United States Code on the U.S. Flag Code, which I will also link to VFW site, and we'll go over it. It marks the reversal of practices once encouraged by the Pentagon. In recent years, some sporting events have asked military members to hold large horizontal flags during events, and some military units have carried them in parades. While many, including service members, find the events moving and patriotic, according to the code, the flag should never touch the ground or be carried flat or horizontally. Commander Nicole Swigan of the DOT spokesperson told the Daily Caller. Additionally, the DOT jump teams may only incorporate the U.S. flag in their public demonstrations if the flag can be caught reliably and handled respectfully by ground personnel during landings. This memorandum ensures that our service members can properly showcase their patriotism and military capabilities while complying with DoD policy. And there is a tweeted out version of the memorandum. The memorandum clarifies the Department of Defense DoD policy that requires uniformed service members to show proper respect to the U.S. flag while supporting community events. The intent is to ensure the consistency across the DoD while responding to requests for the service member participation in public demonstrations to incorporate U.S. flags. Now, I had not read the whole of this little memorandum before starting the video. I was running out of time tonight, so this is entirely candid reading it. Community outreach activities, honors to include national symbols, annual patriotic military observances, references sections 1 through 10 of Title IV United States Code, also known as the Flag Code, for guidance on honoring the U.S. flag, U.S. flag's position and display of the flag. Paragraph 3.1c of the Volume 3 says service members supporting community outreach events must consistently show proper respect to the U.S. flag and uphold the intent of the Flag Code. And it provides that the flag should never be carried flat or horizontally and always aloft and free, and the flag should never touch anything beneath it, such as the ground, the floor, water, merchandise. In recent years, many sponsors of sporting events have instituted the tradition of requesting uniformed military members to unfurl and hold giant horizontal U.S. flags during events as an expression of patriotism and love of country. In addition, some military units have participated in community parades carrying large horizontal U.S. flags in marching formation. Finally, U.S. DoD parachute demonstration teams have adopted the occasional practice of using large U.S. flags attached to and flying in trail below the jumper, which results in the flag dragging along the ground during landings. And then it goes on about, the people finding it, the display is patriotic, etc. And that's in the article. And then the final part says, commanders and public affairs advisors should consult their legal advisors as appropriate for guidance concerning U.S. flag codes and evaluating requests for military support of community events in which the display of the U.S. flag is prominently involved. And so on. So, that's what they're talking about. And then for continuing on with the article, in 2015, it was discovered that DoD officials paid more than $6.8 million over the previous 4 years for patriotic expeditions, such as the now discouraged full-field flag displays at sporting events. The IndyCar Star reported, following a joint oversight report by then Republican Senators John McCain and Jeff Flake, the Pentagon banned the practice of paid patriotism, an initiative they began to help with recruitment. Despite the drop in high school diploma and GED requirements to join the service and waive restrictions on tattoos, an internal DoD survey found that only 9% of those eligible to serve in the military wanted to do so, NBC News reported. Patriotism, too, is at an all-time low in America. A recent Gallup poll showed that 38% of adults proclaiming themselves extremely proud to be an American, a significant dip in the average 55% that had been noted since the question was first asked in 2001, CNN reported. That ain't good. We got our problems, but we're better than pretty much every other country out there that I can think of. Where is it worse? Where is it better than here? Excuse me. Where is it better? I can think of a lot of places that are worse. And if you think it's better, maybe you should go there. This is the most prosperous nation the world has ever known. Despite these struggles, DoD officials maintain that the memorandum is in keeping with regulations and will better ensure the flag is treated with dignity and respect, and encourage public affairs officers to work with sponsors of community events to develop other ways to showcase their patriotism and capabilities of our military that comply with DoD policy. Chris Meyer, Assistant Secretary of Defense for Public Affairs, said, according to Stars and Stripes. And there was a poll at the bottom, because I went through my MSN start screens where I found this earlier in the week. And at the time when I did the survey, it said 17% said, do you agree with the DoD's decision to ban troops from displaying giant flags at major events? 17% said yes, it's important to respect the flag. 76% no, such displays of patriotism should be encouraged. 6% said I'm complicated and I'm not sure. I can understand the complicated one, but when you think about what the flag is supposed to be, a living symbol of our country, it should be more important to respect the flag. That goes elsewhere. This is why, again, I brought up that Bible verse. I've had people get mad at me because I don't like Colin Kaepernick's manner of protest. National anthem's being played, and Colin Kaepernick decides to sit on his butt or kneel. And a bunch of other people have too. Because they're not being respectful. But here's the thing. How do we call that person out when we ourselves don't follow flag code? Flag shouldn't... Now, if you want to say that flag code should be changed because times have changed, when the flag code was written, those displays weren't necessarily possible because you didn't have stadiums. Okay. And make the argument to that it's not necessarily disrespectful in this context. And that's where I could see someone saying it's complicated. But as long as flag code is flag code, that's the way it is. And so, and I've seen this elsewhere. I've gone to my local Republican meeting and seen people not following it. I was setting up the fair booth, and I opened up the fair booth. Other people had been setting it up, and they had you're supposed to have your flags on, stars on the left. Whether you're vertical or whether you're horizontal, stars should always be on the left. I look in there, I went, these are backwards, and I started fixing flags. When I was outright organizing and running the fair booth, I want to set up having flags draped, hanging properly from the corners of the booth. I tried to attach them right to the booth. And I looked at that as soon as I was done, and I had to make sure I wasn't letting it touch the ground. I was about that far. I was a couple inches off of touching the ground. Guy with American Legion, he was actually checking that stuff later. I said, yeah, we checked you. I said, I was embarrassed. I was literally embarrassed that he had to check me. So the next year I built breakdown poles so those flags were above the top of the booth. It actually looked better besides which. Okay? Sometimes people do things with good intentions, but not by deliberate disrespect. And that's part of what I'm talking about. When I went through the USC code, I think we may have done a float with a flag on it, displayed in the improper manner. I'm not certain of that, but it may have been. But here's some stuff. On same staff, flag at peak, above any other flag. Grouped, flag always goes to the right. Flags of other nations are floated at the same height. U.S. flag to the marcher's right, observer's left, if you're marching. Okay, speaker's platform. It should be, if you're facing, it should be above and behind the speaker. If it's mounted on a staff, it should be the speaker's right, so it would be to the left of the audience. Decoration. Never use it for decoration, such as bunting. Use bunting with the blue on top, then white, then red. So never try and drape it around. Salute. This is one I've also seen in a Republican meeting that we need to fix. And I pulled a younger man aside last year and said, hey, you need to take your hat off when we do the flag salute. I didn't know how to even approach people that were older, and I never have been asked to lead the flag salute. All persons present in uniform should render military salute. Members of the armed forces and veterans who are present but not in uniform may render the military salute. All other persons should face the flag, stand at attention with their right hand over their heart, or if applicable, remove their headdress with their right hand, hold it over the left shoulder, hand being over the heart. That's that whole thing of take your hat off, put it here. If I had a hat in reach, I'd show you what that's supposed to look like. And then it gives rules for over a street. Half-staff special rules. Do not let it touch the ground. Do not fly a flag upside down unless there is an emergency. Stop putting the American flag upside down as a form of protest. It's the same distasteful thing that Colin Kaepernick is doing. Stop it. Period. Do not carry the flag flat or carry things in it. This is why they're ostensibly not going to do those displays anymore. Do not use the flag as clothing. Do not store the flag where it can get dirty. Do not use it as a cover. There is rules for over a casket as an exception to that. Do not fasten it or tie it back. Always allow it to fall free. Do not draw on or otherwise mark the flag. So these, I saw one time where someone had an American flag, and it was half American flag, part Confederate flag, and I'm going to be addressing that symbol in a minute. Not proper. People putting emblems where it's been printed over the flag. Not proper. There's actually rules that say it should in the official flag code that you shouldn't be having it on clothing, with an exception of you can have it as a patch on certain types of uniforms. It should not be used for disposable things like napkins. I mean, yes, we have that, and you get in that gray area. Well-intentioned. Red, white, a flag type pattern napkin or paper plate for Independence Day. That drives me nuts too. It's not the 4th of July. It's Independence Day. Remember what it's actually for. It's like people when they went and named what should have been Emancipation Day, Juneteenth. Everyone goes, huh? Okay, so those are some of the flag code things. So I don't care if you love Trump. Maybe you don't like Trump. It doesn't matter. Don't have those. We need to be the example of what we expect out of Democrats. Just like I tell them, hey, my pronouns are master, masters, master, self, and I'm going to make them use those pronouns. If they're going to try and play that game, if we want the fact that we want the flag treated with proper respect, we need to act on it ourselves. So that's the big one there. Be sure that we're being what we should. Now, again, stop using it for upside down as a form of protest. It's very easy to fix. You just turn it up. Liberal Democrats hate our flag anyway. Put it the right side up. You're going to make the point anyway, without having to flip it upside down. You're going to anger them just as much, and you're going to take away ammunition for them. Now, you might wonder why I mentioned the slave state, or the Confederate flag and the Confederacy. I forgot to get my links all lined up so I could read directly from them. But there's also people that think that they need to fly the Confederate flag as a symbol of states' rights or protest. That war was about slavery. Now, if you're a Civil War buff, I get it. You're going to have one of them. If you're making a period piece, whether it's something that took place when it was acceptable to fly the Confederate flag, you can't make Dukes of Hazzard now. You can't make Dukes of Hazzard without the General Lee, and the General Lee has to have a Confederate flag on the top. The only way they could ever make it now is to make it a period piece, and they'd probably still throw a fit. If you're making a period piece, the Confederate battle flag or the battle flag of the Army of Northern Virginia, which is the proper thing, is a historical piece. If you're at a Civil War site, it would be appropriate. But it is not a symbol of states' rights. Prior to the Civil War, slave states wanted to try and silence people in non-slave states who just wanted to speak out against slavery. That is not states' rights. The reason I'm going to include, I spent last night reading the secession declarations of every single Confederate state. Okay, South Carolina specifically named slavery as a reason they were leaving. 5 states, Virginia, Florida, I think Louisiana, and a couple others, just simply said, we're leaving the Union. They didn't give a long reason. But South Carolina specifically said they're leaving because of slavery. Georgia said, we're leaving because of slavery. Texas not only said they're leaving because of slavery, but then went through and spent a significant chunk of their time saying we're leaving because not only slavery, but because it's supposed to be white people supremacy everywhere in the country. This is a country for white people. It sounds like a Klan document. Okay? Stop saying it was about states' rights. It wasn't about states' rights. And you're not a bad person for believing that. You were taught something bad. And in some cases, by progressives themselves. Woodrow Wilson, who had been one of the great progressive champions, is the only former Klansman to ever be in the White House. He talked positively of Birth of a Nation, which glorified the Klan. The man was a racist. And he pushed very, very hard the lost cause myth. So stop flying that. That flag was a symbol that sought to divide the nation and tear it apart. We cannot sit there and say, we're flag-waving patriotic Americans, and wave a flag of a group of people that sought to destroy the nation. Stop. And quite frankly, if people don't like it, I'm saying this, if you're conservative, examine your own heart. I'm going to link to those secession documents where Texas gives like 2 sentences, maybe 3 of we're also not really connected to the rest of the other states, so we can't stay with the Union anyway. Almost like an afterthought. There was a couple of states, and you can see what was effectively a draft resolution for states like Kentucky and Maryland and Missouri, where there was a group that wanted to leave the Union, but they basically had to go off away from the rest of the legislature and try and vote it in like they were the real legislature. So those states didn't leave, but you can see exactly what the others did. And yes, some of them, most of the ones that said just gave a quick "we're done" were ones that seceded after the war had started, after Fort Sumter. So quit doing that. We're flag-waving, patriotic Americans. Remember, Ronald Reagan said that for the Democrats, every day is April 15th. But for Republicans, every day is Independence Day. I think he said 4th of July, but you get the point. Stop using that and attend to our own thing. So when you go into your local Central Committee meeting and you see the young guy keeping his hat on, if you're leading the Pledge of Allegiance, just remind everybody to remove their hat. Just say, hey, we're not Democrats. Remove your hat. It's like when I've been admin on my local Republican Facebook page. I say, hey, we're not Democrats. We keep it family friendly here. Please, no profanity. We're not Democrats. So display the flag properly. Salute the flag properly. Set the example for them and for the generations coming after us. And when this inevitably blows into a big thing, and say, well, it's not flag code anyway, move on. Or insist on some other kind of patriotic display. There's nothing wrong with a whole lineup of American flags along the 50-yard line. That would be awesome. Just line of flags marching right down the field. Stop at the 50-yard line, play the national anthem, move on. That'd be a pretty cool display. There's a lot of ways you can display it without disrespecting the flag. And we can set the example. And then when we say your display is distasteful, we're not getting anybody saying, well, what about you guys? And this, ultimately extends into other things. One of the ones I wanted to touch on, because this is one of those things that I was like, how do I address this? And this article just provided me the opportunity. On other issues, we should be ready to call out disrespectful or bad behavior. A lot of controversy a couple months back over Father Pavone being booted from the Catholic Church and defrocked. Whether it was because he was pro-life or not doesn't really matter. He did some things that, quite frankly, when I sat back and looked at him, I'm like, whether he apologized or not, some things are just, hey, you're going to get fired. It'd be like, oh, you're driving truck and you got caught drinking on the job, you're done. I mean, I know a case where that happened. They found the beer cans in the truck later after the shift, and the owner was like, you ain't ever driving one of my trucks again. I heard about that one on the grapevine. You're done. And I'm sorry, but if he used a aborted fetus to create the image of an aborted fetus on a altar, whether the altar was consecrated or not, the whole thing was a blasphemous, and he abused that baby's body. Matt Walsh tried to defend the guy. He could use take some of his own advice from when he said, don't attach yourselves to Milo Yiannopoulos, advice I followed and lost a friend over. You could take some of his own advice and say, look, this isn't cool. That baby's body was abused. The cause was not that great. There are people that could have created a fake one at the very least. So there's other ways of making your point. And you don't have to make the point nicely either. But without having to do something so outrageous, you just gotta say, this is beyond the pale. This is completely, distasteful. Or even outright wrong, in Father Pavone's case. But in any case, let's set the example. Be what we say we are. Be the flag-waving, patriotic Americans who do stand for the flag, kneel for the cross, or your other religious symbol, and don't glorify those who have torn the nation apart. We already had a civil war once. We don't need to re-divide the nation. Until then, like, subscribe, turn on the bell for notifications, because I've heard they've changed the algorithm again. And comment to help fuel the algorithm. I will. Well, I got a few numbers. I will always try and at least say thanks for the comment. Till then, you all take care.